How long do you think they had hers ready?
Oh, I think they had hers ready like in 1942. I mean, she was...
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.
Hey, I'm kind of afraid to admit how excited I am about this moment.
I love this.
And what did I say earlier? You should never, ever meet your idols.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm hoping this is not a flat tire of a show.
No pressure.
So please welcome to our show, Rocca.
Please. Oh, my God. We're off and running. This is great. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm happy you are here. May I explain another Mo that's going on?
There's another Mo?
It is Movember.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, Movember... for this month, it's all about men's health, men's cancer, things like that. And my husband, by the way, was just diagnosed with testicular cancer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So he's gonna be great. Yeah. That's all good. But I decided to participate in Movember by growing this mustache.
Ah, hence the Magnum PI stash. I was wondering. Right.
Do you think he looks like Walt Disney World? He thinks he looks like Walt Disney.
It doesn't look a little bit. Oh, it feels like Sunday evening at 7 p.m. And if you know what that means, you're over 50.
The wonderful world of Disney.
Yeah. Yes.
No, I look like a drunk Walt Disney with this creepy mustache.
I didn't even think about that. You're meeting your hero with your mustache.
I know.
That's right.
Oh, man.
And that's why I love how you always have to explain it to everybody.
I went on my walk last night, and I was walking around. I did about an hour, went from Tribeca up to the village and walked around. And every time I saw someone coming my way, I would hide behind trash cans. I was like, oh, please don't look at my mustache. Anyway, enough about me. I remember, gosh, was it 3 years ago, maybe more, I was watching CBS Sunday Morning, as I do every CBS Sunday morning. And there was an ad for this podcast you were doing called Mobituaries. And this is before you would see a lot of ads or, publicity for podcasts.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wow, CBS really, that's good. He's actually pushing this podcast on this major show.
Yep. They were convinced. They were bamboozled into doing it for me.
Good job.
Yeah.
Mobituaries is such an interesting, of course, title. It's fabulous.
Well, with the name like Mo, there's so much you can do with it.
Yes.
It's true, right?
Yes,
if I'd been named Vernon, it just wouldn't work. Vernon Bituaries just wouldn't work.
No, it's missing some rhythm of some sort. But learning history, learning everything we need to know about these important people in our past through the storytelling that you do is incredible. So why did you decide to start Mobituaries? Well,
I love obituaries, and I got that love from my father, who was like the least gloomy person I ever knew. I grew up right outside of Washington, D.C. Back then, there were 2 newspapers, and he would just say, oh boy, I love the obituaries. It's my favorite section. And it's because a good obituary, I think, really is about someone's life, not about their death. And it's kind of like a movie trailer for an Oscar-winning biopic, right? Which is oftentimes better than the actual movie. There's sort of a sweep and a romance, like the highs, the lows, the triumphs, the tragedies. It has a sweep and a romance to it. And so I got that from him, and then I thought, well, I'll just do my own, because there are people and things. Obviously, things don't get obituaries, and ideas and eras and countries or whatever, but mostly people that I think never got the send-off they deserved, or maybe deserve another send-off, like a reboot of their death,
right.
of their obituary.
Right. I mean, for instance, in your book Mobituaries, he actually talks about the death of the station wagon.
Yeah.
Oh, R.I.P.
Right. Yeah. Well, I still remember going to like birthday parties, pizza parties at Shakey's Pizza in Bethesda, Maryland, and wanting hoping that the kid whose birthday party it was, their parents had a station wagon, because there was nothing like eating a lot of pizza and then getting in the back in that area, the way back, and just, I don't know, the wider the turn, the better, because you were ping-ponging around.
That's right.
Just ricocheting all around back there. It was really fun and incredibly dangerous. It's exactly. Yes.
It was like it being a human pinball.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But for instance, I was looking down, I have not started with season 3 of Mobituaries, the podcast yet, but I was looking down the list, and I found a story, and I don't want to spoil too much of it. May I spoil a little bit?
Please.
The story about June Foray.
Yeah.
The woman of 1,000 voices.
Yeah. So when I was growing up watching cartoons after school, Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies, as Warner Brothers cartoons, you'd only see the name Mel Blanc, who was amazing. He was the man of 1,000 voices: Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Yosemite Sam. But there was one cartoon in particular that struck me. It was Witch Hazel. Do you remember the witch with the bobby pins and the tiny little heels? And she's got the cauldron and she wants to cook, turn bugs into a fricassee. And she had this song. She would go, a cup of arsenic, some spider, some glue. And she would sing this song over and over. And it freaked me out. Anyway, that woman, the voice of that character was the same as Rocket J. Squirrel, Rocky the Flying Squirrel on Bullwinkle. Her name was June Foray, and it turned out she did a ton of voices, but she didn't get on-screen credit because Mel Blanc had sole on-screen credit for voice characterizations. She seemed like a perfect person's story to tell, somebody that really sort of resonated with me because of that witch and all her other characters.
She was Granny from Tweety and Sylvester.
She was Granny.
That's crazy.
Do you want to hear some of her voices?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Where is it, Scary? It's right here. Right here in 2. Here, hit it.
My favorite children's park. This park to be closed in 80 days.
No dance. Get him firewood. Well, you're not. You're a gummy bear. And gummy bears pick gummy berries.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like. And now it's time to meet Mr. Peabody.
How lucky can they be? They're dead. Besides, I've got all the luck we'll need. Children, back to your seats. The snow can wait. Now.
She stared at the Grinch and said,
Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree?
That was one lady.
That's so
one
crazy.
And I love that you ended on Cindy Lou Who, because if that doesn't melt your heart, kindly leave.
So look what this lady did. Look what she accomplished. And she lived this life that we don't know really a lot about, but she left the legacy of these voices, correct? And these stories that included her voices, and then she passed away. Well, is that really the time which she's just dust now? No. There's history here.
Yeah, and look, she lived until she was almost 100 years old. I don't know exactly what was happening on the day she died, but that oftentimes determines how well people remember you. Like Audrey Hepburn died on the same day that Bill Clinton was inaugurated. I mean, she just got pushed off that front page.
Yeah.
I mean, she was like an A23. I mean, that's Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah.
Right. And the day that Michael Jackson passed away, Farrah Fawcett
Farrah
passed away.
Fawcett,
yeah.
And
exactly.
also
Billy Mays.
Billy Mays, the sales guy.
Oh, right. Oh, he died that same day also?
That's what we're hearing.
Holy
I didn't realize that.
See, these people have these stories, and so...
Well, Dick Sargent, the second Darren on Bewitched, died on the same day as Kim Il-sung, the founder of North Korea. I mean, what a bummer. You're already the second Darren, and then you get overshadowed by some genocidal maniac. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just lousy.
Have you ever wanted to talk about somebody and then you read into them and you're like, they're just not interesting enough?
Everyone, I know this sounds like such a pat answer. Once you get into it, everybody does have a story.
Yeah.
And so I can't think of anyone that I've started with and then lost interest in. Yeah, they would just have a shorter obituary.
Okay.
Maybe just a couple. They would be more of a mobit.
Okay.
What about some of your, it might sound weird to ask about your favorites, but your favorite Mobituaries?
Well, I loved doing John Denver this season.
Wow.
Because John Denver, I remember when he died 25 years ago, and this is maybe it was just in my corner of the universe, but I remember people kind of snarking about him because his career had sort of gone down. He had some substance abuse problems, so there were sort of like wisecracks about the plane crash he was in. He was flying solo in an experimental aircraft. But if you go back, he was so huge, and that music is still played, and it's like a time machine. When you listen to it, you are catapulted back in time. And people still love those songs. I do, and I just knew there was so much to his life. I mean, it was very complicated, and I've been really pleased with the response to that.
And what a great story piece on CBS Sunday Morning.
Yeah, that was nice.
And that's the thing, though. We're all living these lives, these stories that we're actually writing as each hour goes past while we're still breathing. But when we pass away, like, what's our legacy? What are we leaving behind? It may not be the legacy of, well, I was the president or I was whatever. Maybe I was the voice on these great cartoons or whatever. And so these are all lives worth investigating and learning from. Right?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, yeah. Can I turn the tables here for a moment and just tell you, though, that a couple of weeks ago, I was going to the airport and I ordered up an Uber and I got in. And the guy had the radio on pretty loudly. And I was all ready to be like persnickety and be like, could you please turn down the radio? Because I have to read my phone. I have to read Twitter. Stop it. But I couldn't hear what was on. And the driver was having such a good time. And I thought, oh my God, this is just worth experiencing him just being so overjoyed. And he was listening to this show and you were all talking about a Ouija board. That was right.
Yes.
And the sheer joy. Now, he almost drove off the road, which would have been bad, right? Into it, because he was loving it so much. But I just have to tell you, it was so wonderful to be in that car. And by all means, what was going on the air was great, but his experience of it was just so wonderful.
I love that.
Aww.
Yeah.
Did it make you want to do a history of the Ouija board?
It kind of did. It kind of did.
It's not dead yet.
That is true.
It never dies. It never dies.
They never die.
By the way, if you're just turning us on, Rocca is here, entering season 3 or in season 3 of Mobituaries, his podcast, which is on the iHeart Podcast Network and everywhere you get your podcasts. I was looking down the roster of some, and I actually listened to a podcast. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, The Death of a Marriage Ban.
Yeah.
You beautifully started this podcast off with what was on the cover of
Time magazine.
A lot of interesting stories out that week. I do believe one of them was the marriage between an interracial couple marriage.
Yeah. Well,
in 1967, I believe.
Yeah, I just thought this story was interesting. The daughter of the Secretary of State back then, who was white, married a black man, an African American, and they happened to be a really great-looking couple as well. So, but they were very, very private, and yet it got out and it ended up on the cover of Time magazine. So for a short time, they were very, very famous. But of course, it was, the headline is blaring an interracial marriage. And, this is kind of like yesterday, right? It is and it isn't. So stories like that are really interesting to me. Like, boy, and back then, Time magazine weighed 5 pounds. I mean, it was a very big deal. And the fact that this made the cover, I just wanted to know what that story was, how they had met and what their lives were like after that. And he's passed away. Guy Smith was his name. And Peggy Rusk, the wife, is still alive. And she's super, super cool, a very private person. This is the first time she'd really talked about it. And that was a very big year for interracial marriage because earlier that year, Loving versus Virginia, the Supreme Court struck down the remaining bans, which were in place in 16 states against interracial marriage. And then later that year was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was one of the biggest blockbusters in Columbia Pictures history. So, and they're this private, would-be private couple in the middle of it, thrown under the cover of this magazine. So that, to me, was really interesting. I think also part of me wondered, what is it like to walk down the street and see yourself, getting that much publicity for doing something that's pretty normal, right? So.
Marrying someone you love.
Oh, yeah.
And this, as you were pointing out, was in the 1960s. And for most of us, wasn't that all that long ago. To be known, to get married and actually be thrown in jail, I mean, it was against the law.
Right, yeah.
Crazy.
Do it. I don't know if you spent jail time or if you were actually married. I don't know if anyone would marry you.
Well, Mildred Loving, the case that went to the Supreme Court, that couple had actually spent time in jail when they first got married in the 50s. So, so it was but most of all, that's a love story. And what I found sort of interesting is Peggy Rusk said that this kind of surprised me that she really wasn't paying attention to the news at the time. I said, really? There was a Supreme Court case? And she said, no, we were going to get married regardless of what anyone thought. We were in love. So I thought that was so kind of pure and compelling that the other stuff didn't matter. And she kept saying to me, we didn't get married to make a point or for the benefit of, we didn't care what anyone else thought. We were going to get married. And to have that kind of clarity is kind of great.
Wow.
So when I read an obituary, they all tend to be the same. Obviously, your obituaries are different. But if you could give people advice, something to grab attention, or, aside from he was a devoted husband and a loving father, and those are important, but to get away from the form writing of an obituary, what is something important to look at?
Well, it's kind of funny when you talk about those little phrases that get attached to people. And I was talking to an obituary writer from Atlanta, and she's pretty great. And she was telling me that you had to be able to read into the euphemisms. Like when they say, oh, he was a great raconteur, that usually means he was a terrible bore and couldn't shut up.
Okay. All right.
I wish I could remember the other ones. I would say that I love little details. And there was the obituary for Alfred Hitchcock had this great little detail, which is that when he was 5 or 6 years old in the English village he was growing up in, his parents had the local jailer, because of course there's a local jailer, had the local jailer take little Alfred and throw him into a cell and slam the door behind him and say, that's what happens to bad little boys. Oh. And that clanging noise, that stayed with him and reverberated in his mind all of his life. And it kind of explains his sort of fixation with crime and punishment and mistaken identity. And it was basically their version of a Scared Straight program.
Right.
And I love little details like that.
Wow. What's kind of weird? Oh, go ahead. Follow up.
Have you thought about guidelines for your own?
Yeah, I would like the first line of my obituary to read Mo Rocca, comma, and this is like the really important part, the little part in the middle. So Mo Rocca, comma, who made people interested in things they weren't. Mo Rocca, comma, who made people interested in things they didn't expect to be interested in, comma, died today. Period. He was 107. Period.
Okay.
For the first paragraph.
I think you should write your own and leave
it.
Yeah.
So exactly. So that first sentence, that clause in the middle there, you got to pack that thing in. That's where it all is.
Well, back to obituaries. I was stunned to find out that there is a publication here in New York City that has my obituary already started.
That's very flattering. If you have a pre-obit, good for you. That's a mark. That's like trending on Twitter. Yeah. That's like better than that. If you've got like a prefab obit, the New York Times has a whole cellar of them. They've got all these. They did a documentary about this, but like. You got to be a muckety muck, right? To get, here's the thing, by the way.
So strange.
Yeah. But here's the thing, like this is real chutzpah, or let's just call it vanity. An obit writer from the New York Times told me that there are people that cold call the obit department. And there's one person, and I'm not going to say who was in charge of a major sports league, who called up and said, hi, I'm calling to talk about my obituary. I mean, that's arrogance, right? Yeah. Because you're assuming you're going to get an obit. And if I were working that desk, I would have been like, we're really on the fence about it. We're not sure we're going to give you an obituary, but that's fine. I've got some time now if you want to talk about your life. But anyway, but you've got one, and you're not the type of person that would call ahead and be like, hi, I'm calling. I just want to tweak my obit.
I haven't called yet. No.
Now, a person like Betty White. How long do you think they had hers ready?
Oh, I think they had hers ready like in 1942. I mean, she had an 80-year career. Yeah. I mean, they're the people that you have to keep going. Oh, well, I don't think I would get in trouble for saying this, but at CBS News for a while, my office happened to be in the section called Special Events, where they have the video obits ready to go for heads of state and all that, and I just loved hearing outside my door. I literally heard this one day. Carol, it's time to refresh the Jimmy Carter obit. Well, no, because I mean, it's going to happen. But I mean, when somebody, and it's wonderful, lives for a really long time, you got to keep adding to it.
That's true. Yeah.
You would want them to keep adding to your obit. Have you ever got excited about doing a obituary podcast or story about someone, and then you find out they're still alive?
Who?
Did you ever play that game, Dead or Alive? We'd play that all the time.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, there are definitely people that I'm watching. I mean, I don't mean that I'm keeping tabs on. People I like.
He's looking right at me with my mustache.
I know. It's like in the cartoons where, right, you're looking at the animal, imagining them like on the dinner table.
Exactly.
Like the turkey with the steam rising up from it.
Thanks, Mo.
Yeah.
People don't realize that I'm actually a vulture. I'm just flying around here.
This is just... Oh, by the way, the other thing you do that I love is the Innovation Nation.
Oh, thank you.
Now, you know what? When's the last time you woke up early on a Saturday and you watched Saturday programming? There's some really well-produced shows. Henry Ford's Innovation Nation, which is on CBS. So fascinating. I love that show.
Yeah, it's a show. It's a show that I host that's basically about the history and present day innovation, and I love history, and so we shoot it at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan, which is an amazing museum if you've never been there. I mean, they moved quite literally the Wright brothers' bicycle shop where the airplane was invented from Dayton, Ohio. They have Menlo Park Laboratory moved from New Jersey brick by brick where Thomas Edison invented the light bulb and the phonograph. All of that is there. It's kind of an amazing museum.
This meeting Mo Rocca and hearing him is just a great example of what we love to preach on this show. It's like, follow your passions. You obviously are extremely passionate about history and the storytelling that you do. And to be able to make a living doing this, I hope you never take this for granted because it's fascinating.
No, I don't. And, I like life feeling like I'm only taking electives. Like, if you went back to college, if you went to college and you went back and only took electives, that's kind of like what I'd like to do. And so, tomorrow we have released our obituary on the Latin lover. That was something I was really interested in, the whole history of that kind of label in movies. It started with Rudolph Valentino and went up through Fernando Lamas. And I talked to Lorenzo Lamas, who was great, from Falcon Crest and Renegade, and about how his father felt about that.
The Latin lover.
Yeah. For those who may remember Billy Crystal on Saturday Night Live, the whole "You Look Marvelous." Yeah, that was based on Fernando Lamas.
Wow.
So.
I have a call for you.
I love calls.
Victoria,
I love calls.
You've been on hold for a while. How you doing, Victoria? Welcome to the show. Say hi to Mo Rocca.
Hi, everybody. This is so exciting.
Hi, Victoria.
Hello. So I was calling because I am a teacher, and it was so interesting because I've never heard of you before till right now. And it's so hard to get these kids to be into history, and this is just so exciting because I can't wait to go into work now and share it with them. And I'm just going to throw all my lesson plans away for the day and do this instead.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, Victoria, I think that's great. And, when in doubt, just add cartoons. I think that's the best. It makes it go down a lot easier if there's a cartoon version of it.
Something animated. You know what, Victoria, I love that. And a great start also would be having them watch Henry Ford's Innovation Nation. It's on Saturday mornings. They can stream it and just record it and watch it at their leisure because it really is a great show and everything's just explained so well. It really is.
Yeah, this is so exciting. It really is so interesting, and finding things that they want to learn about and things like this is so hard for them. So knowing that they can go and watch and listen to you is great. Because I can't find things that they relate to, and this is something that they would find interesting. Well, and
if I may, from season 2 of the Mobituaries podcast, there's an episode on Thomas Paine that I think, we staged a whole musical number around Thomas Paine. Only 6 people. He wrote Common Sense, which is basically the pamphlet that kind of turbocharged the American Revolution, and then only 6 people showed up to his funeral, which is very rude. And so we restaged his funeral with more people singing a song all about him.
You staged a funeral.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Victoria, thank you for your call. You have a great day, and we love our teachers. We love them. We love you.
Yeah.
Oh, I love you guys. Thank you.
If you're listening to us on the iHeartRadio app, there's a talkback feature. You can push the microphone and say whatever you want.
I really feel like, and I like myself, but I just don't feel like there's that much juice in my life that my obituary would be so interesting that someone would even want to read it. I'm just, a normal person. I don't know.
What's your response to that?
I think it's about finding first of all, everybody's life has an arc, a dramatic arc. And so I think, if you think hard enough, you're more special than you realize. And, but you need to get a good writer. Isn't that always the case?
Yes.
But it's also never too late for her to go and find that juice.
No, the juice is there.
That's true.
Yeah, the juice is there.
Yeah, she's got. Yeah, exactly. You squeeze harder. No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I kind of feel like not to be morbid, I feel like I'm in the second intermission of my 3 acts. Right, when plays had 3 acts, and that's just too long. Who has time on a Tuesday night to sit in the theater for 3.5 hours? That's another issue. But I actually hate intermissions, and I want to do a Mobituary on the intermission. I think we get rid of the intermission. It's a vestigial structure. I know they needed to sell concessions and all that. We need everything to be an hour and 45 minutes and out, in and out.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. We are done. We do not have time for a 3-hour musical on a Tuesday night. But in any case, but thinking about things in terms of 3 acts, I kind of feel like I'm in the second intermission. I want the third act to just be, I want the reviewers to be like, wow, this ended really strong. You don't want it to be like, oh, it was really great, but we left after the first intermission because it just started falling apart.
Wow. There's incentive to get up and go to work every day.
Yeah, so consult with a theater critic today on what to do with the rest of your life.
Yeah. Okay. I did leave one show during intermission. It was 9 with John Stamos. Horrible.
we left during Spider-Man because someone fell and hit someone in the head.
Oh, yeah.
Because you had to take them to the hospital.
Exactly. I don't know. I was asked once, look, we all have been asked from time to time to think, well, what's the legacy you're going to leave behind? And my legacy I want to leave behind is, who's that guy we used to listen to with those women?
He opened a portal with a Ouija board.
Yeah, we opened a portal with a Ouija board. No, they don't need to know our names as long as they remember that they felt something. Mm-hmm. And right now they're feeling something with you here.
I know, and he is survived by legions of devoted fans and those women.
Thanks.
Those icky women.
Those broads.
So Mobituaries, it's the 3rd round, season 3 of Mobituaries, the podcast. But you can always catch Rocca on CBS Sunday morning, and of course Henry Ford's Innovation Nation on Saturday morning. So you've got CBS locked in.
It's just I don't exist during the week. I'm only on weekends.
Except for today, of course.
Yes.
Mo, it's such an honor to have you come by.
This was really fun. I mean, I've had a great time, and I will continue to be a listener myself.
All right, we all have a story, and unlock that, because that's your juice that you're looking for. Squeeze harder, said Mo Rocca.
Yeah.
We'll be back right after this. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
The Mercedes-Benz Interview Lounge.